or not. So, welcome everyone.
Welcome all. We are going to start in 3 minutes.
Shaheen, did you do something different to your hair?
Yes.
You look different. What do you do?
Combed it today.
As opposed to every other day when you just wake up out of bed and you're like, yeah, I think COVID is taking over, right? Everyone's just like, and at least I don't comb my hair anymore. I'm just, I don't even use the mirror. I just look at my calling app, whether it's Zoom or Google Hangouts, and I'm like, as long as I look good in this one, I think that's all that matters.
But they see you in bigger picture, right? So you might.
Yeah, so I do like scale it up, and I'm like, okay, this looks good. Yep. It's like I have a 8:30 meeting, a few days a week, and so I just like get up at 8:15, and I'm like, do I look good? Yeah, okay, let's move on.
So 1 more minute, everyone, and we are going to start. In the meantime, if you are not part of our Slack channel, join us there.
Can you put up the link for the Slack channel?
Yeah. Arif, would you be able to do that?
Yes. Let me check. I'll post it in the Zoom chat.
Thank you.
Which channel are you all watching?
The sounds that you are hearing is the sound of people jumping in, like coming to the, is that what you're referring to?
Do participants hear it? I thought it's for hosts and co-hosts who hear the sound.
Yeah, I don't think I hear it. So
yeah,
also my dogs are yapping behind me, so who knows?
Okay. So I'm going to mute all. I'm going to unmute Bob because we need to hear him. And let's kickstart the session. We are at 7, people are joining us, and we don't want to waste more time. So hello, thank you for joining us. We are very happy to have Bob today for our Lean Agile Network series. So a Lean Agile Network, let me minimize this one so that you can see. You can find us on our website, Twitter, LinkedIn, we are on Meetup, and our Slack channel is here, but we are going to put it on the chat as well. And we are on YouTube, and we are live streaming on YouTube right now. And today we become the 2000th person join us, so it's amazing. And thank you guys for keep continuing coming to our community and making it better day by day. Typically when we were pre-COVID, we were announcing the In Around Us community event that's happening, but after that we are doing it in a more virtual fashion. So I put a list. If you want to see that, you go to bit.ly/Lean Agile Community. This is a list that is mostly around Toronto and Canada area. So you can see plenty of options to attend for the community events that are happening and the conferences or on conferences. And the other one is the virtualagilecommunity.com, which you guys is a list with everyone that can contribute to that. And this is the list. So these are the things happening virtually. You can subscribe to the calendar, and you can submit the events. If you know any good event, you want to promote it, you can come here and submit the event. And one of the events that is here on this one is Agile Online Summit that is going to happen October 26th. And Bob is a track chair on that one. Correct me if I'm not right, Bob. And it's happening October 26th. So attend that one. What's a typical Lean Agile network? So we are typically every month we get together and we have a speaker that is going to come and talk to us. We used to have this one at lunchtime, but due to the feedback that we received after COVID, now we are having it after hours. Every month, 2 weeks after our launch speaker series, we have a kind of a lean coffee approach to network and have a conversation that typically is aligned with the previous talk that we heard about. So I'm assuming that in 2 weeks, we are going to have a lean coffee session around product or what a good product is. So today's talk, the logistic and norms, let me talk about that a little bit. So if you have some questions, put it in the chat. We are going to bring it up to the Bob's attention and ask him. If you lost the Zoom, you can find it on the Meetup, and if not, on the Meetup we post the YouTube link that we are live streaming to accommodate all the interest. Without any further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Bob. Let me stop share. Bob is a great person that I know of from the people that I cherish their mindset, and then I get a chance to know him through his podcast. He inspired me to start my own, and as you guys can see, I started my own podcast as well, which is not anywhere closer to his. He's a keynote speaker, he's a trainer, he's an educator, and we are very honored to have him today. As much as I want to introduce him, I won't do the justice. I'm leaving that up to him to tell us who the Bob is. And with no further ado, Bob, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks, Shahid, for having me, and all of you. It was a real pleasure to be invited. So I've been looking forward to this. And thank you for the kind introduction. I don't know if I can do any better than you did. I probably will do worse. So let me share my screen. I want to share my screen with everyone. What I'd encourage everyone to do is, if you have questions along the way in this presentation, please ask them in the chat box. And I think Shaheen and some others will be they'll be facilitating that, and then I'll take them in real time. So don't let them wait till the end. It's better to ask them along the way if you have any. Let me share, and then I hope everyone can see this. Does that, Shaheen? Cool. All right, I'll take that thumb as an affirmative. And let me move my camera just a bit. So 4 quadrants. I want to ask everyone to get a piece of paper at your leisure. So over the next few minutes, you want to just get a piece of paper, and you want to draw quadrants on it. So you can do this electronically, but I'm old school, so I prefer if you tried it via like pen and paper. So get a piece of paper or get a virtual document, draw a quadrants on it, and then draw like a box at the bottom, if you would, just a box. So 4 quadrants and then a box. And I want you to take notes. I'm going to ask you to take notes along the way. So just grab that paper if you could. And if you could put a notice, Shaheen, in the chat box that people need to set themselves up that way, that'd be great. So let me go through this presentation. There's not much I want to talk about me other than I'm a passionate collector of potato heads. And my favorite potato head is, not that this matters about Agile. So there's nothing that aligns between potato heads and Agile except my fondness for the potato heads. And Darth Tater is my favorite to the degree that I can have a favorite. They're like my children. You're not supposed to have a favorite, but I have a favorite potato head, and it's Darth Tater. So he's down there at the right. What else do I want to share? Probably nothing. I want to talk about why quadrants and why I think about this so much. I think the product owner role is very misunderstood, and to this day. So when I wrote the first edition of my product owner book, and I published it in 2009. So that's like 10, 11 years ago. And I was working on it a few years before that. And at the time, I was thinking that there wasn't a lot of guidance for product ownership. And I produced the book, and other people have produced books. and the guidance has gone up, but I still think the general confusion is roughly there in a lot of cases for what the product owner is versus a product manager. There's a lot of discussion. So the quadrants, I think, help with that. There's also this notion, sometimes I talk about it being an inwardly facing, so there's a question, is it inwardly facing to the team? Is it outwardly facing towards the customer? Is it both of those things? And there's confusion around the balance. I can't believe I still hear this nowadays, but is it a full-time role? So people are like, if I have 20,000 teams, can I have one product owner for 20,000 teams? I still, and my answer is no, and no one likes that answer because it requires to pay more money, but it's really, people are still thinking that the product owner is sort of a part-time, do it when you have some spare time role. I want to talk about the dimensions and the skills. And I think the most important part of the quadrants, and you'll get this when we're doing the homework or when you're working along with me, is I think balance is the key. So it's not doing one thing versus the other. It's how are you, it's a tightrope walk across the different activities that are expected of a product owner. And I think that's one of my big drivers, is to try to sensitize each one of you, especially the product owners who are listening in, to be more balanced. So here's the workshop flow. We're going to explore each quadrant. Then I'm also going to ask you to work individually, not in pairs. And I want you to explore that quadrant for your context. So when I explain it, then I want you to take, and I'm going to give you a few minutes, like 2 minutes per break, per quadrant. I want you to either, if you're a product owner, I want you to talk about the activities that you are personally sort of exhibiting in that quadrant. So you're doing a little bit of a mini assessment per quadrant for yourself, if you're a product owner or a product manager. If you're not, if you're a team member, Scrum Master, coach, whatever, then I want you to pick an organization that you're working with and look organizationally, and then roughly say, where are all of us? Where is the organization? What are the activities they are spending in this quadrant? So it's either, if you're a PO, I want you to personally do an assessment. If you're not a PO, I want you to step up a level and look organizationally, if that's okay. And then we're going to balance across the quadrants, and I'll explain that. And then I have a surprise. I'm becoming a better marketer as I get older. And I was like, right, 4 quadrants, everyone's paying for 4. What if I give them 5? I know that doesn't make sense geometrically, but what if I give them 5? I'm like, that, if 4 is good, then 5 has to be outstanding. So I actually have a 5th quadrant that I'm going to, it's like a present. You're going to unwrap it at the end of, we're going to unwrap it at the end. So, so we have 5 quadrants to go over. Here's the quadrant, da-da, I need a drum roll. So dun, da, 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 the quadrants are product management, for envisioning and clarification, project, and please don't get caught up in the quadrants too much. These are just labels for activities. I want you to personalize them and make them your own. So there's a product management quadrant I want to talk about. There's a project management. No, I didn't stutter. I didn't misspeak. It's project management quadrant. There's a leadership quadrant, and then there's a business analysis quadrant. And we'll go into each one of them and some of the activities that I think are in each one. Quadrant 1, product management. So what are some of the activities there? Champion and evangelist, I think is part of this. Mostly external, or a lot of it is to senior leadership, to stakeholders. Establishing the vision with senior stakeholders. Product release and roadmaps, so high-level remote roadmaps, release goals, things you're sharing with clients, setting stakeholder expectations, business case development, very early in the product, developing a business case, calculating ROI, coming up with to calculate ROI, support marketing, so cross-functionally. The product management quadrant is for cross-functional support. If we have financial organization implications, marketing organization, client support organizations, sales organizations, it's connecting the dots to those organizations, and then engaging with the customers. Everyone, I hope you get a feel like this is mostly an outwardly and an upwardly facing quadrant with a lot of activities around that. I wanted to bring this up a lot of times, and this goes back to, is it a full-time job? There's something called Pragmatic Marketing, and they have a product management framework it's Pragmatic Marketing framework. And you can see all of these boxes. I think there's like 42 of them. There's 40 or so activities for a product manager. And when I've mapped it to product ownership, to the Scrum Guide, maybe 8 to 12 of them can map into the Scrum, the product owner activities map in here. So if you do the math, that says there's approximately 25 to 30 product management activities that really aren't classically identified or mentioned in the Scrum Guide. So I hope that makes sense to folks. So there's a disconnect in a lot of organizations. If product managers, they're looking at the world this way, and Agile Scrum Agilists, product owners are looking at the world in a very reduced way. And what I want is those product owners to actually, and product managers who are doing product owner roles, they need to open their eyes. They need to understand that product management is broad, and so it's a broad and a deep activity. So it's outwardly facing in this way, and there's a lot of activity in that. The other thing is now we have inwardly facing, so there's going to be some tension in between those. So that's what I was getting at with the quadrant one. Is it's more externally facing. It's more aligned with the product management framework, product marketing. And if you're in product marketing, you probably have heard of these guys. They've been around for a long time. They do certifications and training. So what I want you to do is stop right now. I want you to grab your paper. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Hold it. I need my clock. Darn it. So I have to prove to everyone that I'm timing you. So I have an old school timer. We're not going to do an electronic timer. And you have 2 minutes. And what I want you to do is put on your product management hat. And if you're a product owner, what sorts of these activities are you doing? You might even list what am I currently doing and what I should be doing. Everyone with me? You might have some things that I need to extend and do. And if you're out, not a product owner, you're doing it organizationally. So take 2 minutes and sort of fill in that quadrant and make it very specific to where you're at, okay? Oh, one more thing, and identify how much time to plus or minus 10% you spend there. Either your organization on average spends there, or you personally spend there. So 10% increments of your time investment in that quadrant. Think deeply, think broadly, think about this slide. Where are you? And should there be doing something? Are there any gaps that you have? Everyone with me? So 10, what am I doing? What's the percentage? And do I have any clear gaps? Am I dropping the ball anywhere? Or is the organization dropping the ball anywhere? Got about a minute left. Take this. So I'm gonna ring up all of your supervisors and bosses and leaders tonight, and you're gonna get a quiz when you go to work tomorrow, virtually or in person. So I'm adding. So this is a serious request. This is a serious ask, and I'm threatening everyone to complete it. That's probably not the best strategy, Shaheen. About 30 seconds left. Okay, that's the end of that. So we're going to move on. It doesn't stop you. You can still think about it. Quadrant 2 is the land of project management. And remember, product owner role, we've just filled out a quarter of our job description. Everyone with me? We're only 25% into our job description. So we're moving slow. So Shaheen, what do you got?
So there's one question I think we can answer before moving on to the next quadrant is from Peter. He's asking, where does lean startup / lean product development experimentation fit into product management in your opinion and experience?
So where does it fit in the quadrants, or does it fit?
Maybe Peter.
I can go off mute and ask you.
That would be wonderful. Please.
Hi, Bob. So I'm a full disclosure. I'm a lean startup coach, and kind of zealot, disciple, follower, whatever you want to call it. So I guess, as I read through, and sure, pragmatic marketing, I get it. And yeah, there's a bunch of boxes in pragmatic marketing, and there's a methodology to it, and they make lots of money through certification. But what I'm wondering is, in your experience and in, kind of the union of where you see Agile product ownership and product management, and thinking about lean startup in an experimental way to kind of iterate your way to a product, where does that fit in? Does it fit into one of these quadrants that I missed, or is it in the product management quadrant?
I don't think you missed it. I mean, it's part of what I was saying earlier is make it your own, right? So if you're in a lean startup environment or ecosystem, or if that's part of your product ecosystem, then I would, add it. And you like the quadrant model, then I would add it there. And if I was going to add it somewhere, it would probably be product management. But I would also probably add it to the leadership side of things as well, from the point of view of leading that, like the strategic thinking of that, the way of changing how we think about experiments and how do we think about discovery and how we think about making business decisions. I think there's a product management side, but I would also think that there's a leadership aspect to that as well. Now stepping out of the quadrants and looking at the organization, I think in my experience that fits into product, if you know what I mean, right? So in product organizations, very often they have lean startup. So there's product management, product ownership. Very often there's UX and design, and very often if there's lean startup thinking, that's in the product hierarchy as well. So that's more from an organizational structure point of view. Cool, thanks for the question.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Thank you.
So project management, classic project management, thinking like chartering, and not throwing away some of these things. This actually answers the question that I get. It's not an answer, but it's a directional sort of thought process of a lot of project managers are like, they're asking the question of what do I do in Agile? And usually that question is they're going Scrum, and they're like, do I have to become a Scrum Master? And I don't, my answer is, that's a potential opportunity for you, but not all, in my experience, not all project managers make great Scrum Masters. Not all of them are wired the same way to effectively make that transition. And I said, so sometimes I've seen project managers that augment the product side of the house, like they help the product organization do things like shorter and longer term planning or release management. Expectation like communication plan. If you all are familiar, there's activities that project managers do that are cross-functionally valuable organizationally. They may not be so lean, but they are incredibly valuable to deploy things to real customers. Managing dependencies, getting project managers involved in release planning. Maybe not typically PI planning from a safe point of view, but just good old-fashioned release planning, risk mitigation. They're worth their weight in gold if you're in a regulatory environment, if that makes sense to folks. Like if you're in a highly regulated environment, then there's dependencies and obligations that you have to go through from a documentation point of view, from a testing point of view, and traditional project management can be very valuable in gluing that together. If you don't have a project manager, that falls to the product owner. From my point of view, if you only have 3 people to pick, so there's the Scrum team, the Scrum Master, and the product owner, and you're trying to figure out where do project management activities fall, I don't think they necessarily fall to the team. I don't think they necessarily fall to the Scrum Master based on the roles in the Scrum Guide. I think they probably land in the lap of the product owner if they have the skills. That's the other thing where, you know, connecting or partnering with project managers helps, because not all product owners have the skills in that area. Another thing I want to influence is there's a disease in, well, it's not COVID, but there's a disease in Agile. Maybe that metaphor is not so good. There's an affliction. There's something happening in Agile. I call it feature-itis, where when you look at backlogs, all you see is executable functional features or stories being deployed. And I don't see things like, I forget the young man's name, but he was talking about experiments, like reserving time for experiments, or reserving time for refactoring, or reserving time for bug fixing, and maybe capturing that as a story, as a placeholder or something. When I look at a backlog, I want to see a much richer landscape than just stories. I want to see regulatory concerns. I want to see dependencies mapped if they're appropriate. Maybe some risk in the ordering of the stories. How is the team handling architecture and design and sort of unfolding, handling emergent requirements and emergent architecture? How are they factoring in the customer and deploying things to clients for feedback? I should see indications of that in the backlog. To look at strategy and flow from a backlog perspective. What I'm trying to do is I have a richer view to the product backlog than just feature. I want to see the thinking. I want to see the risks mitigated. I want to see the architecture unfold. I want to make sure the team is experimenting and trying them early as opposed to late and consistently. So if you have that mindset. So the metaphor is a tapestry there, and I want to look at it much richer. And I think if we have this project management mindset, we look at the backlog as not just a series of requirements or a series of stories, but we can look at it and augment it to be a much richer place to figure out what the team is doing and communicate to clients. Of course, it's context-based, so your context matters. So before, I want to do the same thing that we did the last time with a two minute break, and you can go back and do, so you have 2 quadrants now. And what I want you doing is listing for yourself or for your organization, how much activity are we representing in the product quadrant? How much time am I spending, or is the organization roughly spending there as a percentage of 100%? And then are there any missing things that are obvious and we're not doing this, and this right now, and maybe we should be? So let's take a break and think about that and fill in those bullets. And if you're paying attention, we're 2 quadrants down. So you can actually anticipate our velocity by measuring the quadrants, and you get a sense for where we're at in the presentation. So, but don't leave too early. Remember, I have the 5th quadrant at the end.
Would you mind flipping back to the slide that showed the
absolutely. Oh, that was a wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I like this Agile interactive thing. I think it works okay. Okay, so we're going to move on. Drum roll, please. No drum roll. So I want to talk about the leadership quadrant. And this is one where I get, there's a question from Mr. Yes.
Yeah. So Rohit is asking, do you think that the project management is ideal for more linear approach, but not for product development?
So I think you're thinking maybe Gantt charts and things. I'm guessing. What I'm really trying to say is look at the world of project management as some. So ask yourself the question: what are the activities of a project manager, and would some of them be useful mapping into Agile context? For example, risk management. And in Agile context, we rarely even talk about risk management. And in some organizations, like in regulatory environments, you actually have to put together a risk plan, and project managers know how to do that. So I'm not arguing the linear versus nonlinear or exploratory. So I'm not arguing the methodology perspective. I'm arguing the activity perspective, that I think there are some, and it depends on the company and it depends on the instance of Agile, but I think there are some project management activities that someone needs to worry about, someone needs to take care of on the product side of the organization. Otherwise, the release may not work. You may not be able to be successful. I hope that makes sense. I hope that answered that question. Anything else, Shaheen?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Cool. So third quadrant leadership. I get some pushback on this sometimes. Folks are like, and this is little L leader. So I'm not amplifying this as a reporting structure. So I'm not suggesting that the team reports to the product owner. What I'm saying is I think there's some leadership mindset that I want the product owner to adopt. And very often I don't know, like actually going back into the quadrants, I think a lot of product owners so far, they maybe execute a little bit in product management, but they forget a lot of things. They execute very little in project management, and that's a concern of mine. I think there may be some activities that they need to tidy up. And then in leadership, I don't see enough leadership sometimes, because someone is looking at, oh, there's a hierarchy over here. And I'm actually saying, I think so I'm a proponent of everyone in an Agile context is a leader. But then there are these specific roles, like Scrum Masters have a wonderful leadership opportunity, and I think product owners have a wonderful leadership opportunity. And that's what I want to drill into here. And vision and mission, like I want product owners to motivate their team. I hope that makes sense. Like managers can motivate, and maybe the CEO, but I think the individual product owner, depending on how compelling a vision they paint, how much they connect the dots to the impact that the team can have to the customer, that can really jazz up and energize a team. They can help with organizational alignment, making sure that product is aligned, effectively. It's not just a project organization, but it's a product aligned organization. Managing external expectations. Very often, instead of, some product owners will push the team too hard. It's like, oh, we have downward pressure to deliver. But I also think they have outward pressure to defend their team. Everyone understand what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's not just the Scrum Master's job to defend the team. I think the product owner, based on their role, can do things like protect the team, trust the team, manage external expectations so they're realistic of the team, balance the work. I was talking to someone just a few days ago, and they were talking about a product owner who was pushing the team to cut their estimates. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Like, they had points, and the product, it was actually a very senior, it was like a senior VP of product, was coming in and telling the team that they didn't like the estimates. They didn't understand them, and they didn't understand why they were so big, and they wanted them much smaller. Imagine that conversation. I've never heard that conversation happening before. And so and I was talking to her, we were talking as a coaching group, and like, how could you defend against that? Or what are some of the root causes? And I said, I think part of the product owner's role is to get intimate with the team, and actually, instead of pushing, they should understand what the hard things are. If everyone knows what I'm saying, they should have a visceral, even if they're not writing code or not doing design, I think if they pay attention to their team over time, they get a sense for, if I give them this, it's a hard one. If I give them this, it's an easy one. If I give them this, it's a moderate one. They should get a visceral sense for level of difficulty. They should get a visceral sense for complexity, and so that they understand it, so they don't incessantly mistrust the team and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But they have to listen. They have to really listen to the team in backlog refinement and things like that. They become strength-based. They're vulnerable. They ask for help. So they have that vulnerability. Another thing that I wish more product owners did is part of this is become a storyteller into the team and outward to the team. Like tell stories of what the customer is looking for and what problems are we trying to solve. And not in user story format, in storytelling, and then share stories to stakeholders of what's happening in their teams and how the team is leaping tall buildings in a single bound. Tell some stories about that. They should be an advocate for the team. And I look at that as being under the leadership quadrant. I hope the young man that was talking about lean startup sees that there's some lean startup thinking in here as well. Explaining it to the organization. So I was going to say selling it, but I don't really mean to sell it. It's more evangelizing it, the need for it, what it's about. This is sort of an evangelizing internally quadrant to make sure that we're all aligned. One thing I think that helps here is very often we talk about the Scrum Values, and because they're a team-centric thing. And I want us to think about the product ecosystem and what part are you playing in this? So commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. We should be able to articulate, and this is part of the leadership quadrant, how are product owners exhibiting commitment? How are product owners exhibiting focus? Not just as a team function. How are they, and how is the product owner function? Respect. Everyone with me. The example I just gave about a product owner pushing the team incessantly, I don't think that's respecting the team. It's not trusting the team. It's not really encouraging commitment based on the actual capacity of the team. So I actually think that behavior is breaking some of these core Scrum values. Well, if they're good enough to apply to the team, I think they're good enough to apply to the leadership quadrant of the product owner. So I just wanted to sort of put that out there. The other thing that I think, the other metaphor I want to encourage, and it's a leadership metaphor, is, and it's a vulnerability, sort of aspect, is I think the prime directive for any product owner is to create mini-me's in the team, so that you're actually teaching and coaching your team members so that they are empathetic to the customer, they understand the problems. You're literally trying to coach them and train them to become mini product owners, so they have the ability to really understand the client. I remember years ago, there's a senior VP down here at a company called Channel Advisor. Link Walls is his name. And this was about 10 years ago or more. And Link was a product owner at the time. He was a lowly product owner, but he was an outstanding product owner. And I remember he would have pizza lunches with his team, and he would bring pizza in, and he would talk to them about competitive landscape, the competitive landscape, the competitors. He would talk to them. He would actually show them competitive products. He would ask them about what they think, how they want to evolve the roadmap. He would talk to them about how we're internally not competing. He would actually challenge them a lot, the team, about that the product, our product, was not competing in certain areas. He was trying to create, he was taking a little bit of time each week to train the team to understand. And what happened over time is something sort of interesting. The team started pushing back on him. They started arguing with him. He would give them a story, like a 10-point story, and he'd get an answer like, oh, we don't need that story. We need a 2-point story. So we know what problem you're trying to solve. And he'd be like, yeah, well, you don't want that. We don't want that. We want this. And it's a little bit less work, or we almost have that implemented right now. Is that right, Link? And Link would be like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. And what happened is he started getting this partnership. Everyone, I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, where the team was starting to have a persona of the client. It was actually cool. Sometimes the team would say, no, we're not going to do this. It's already implemented. And Link would be like, his head would, it's like, oh, you're right. So the team was, they weren't just implementing stories. They were mini POs. And I think the best leader, now it's risky to do that because you're giving up some of your authority. Everyone with me? You're giving us up some of your decision making, you're collaborating. But I think it's the most powerful dynamic for a PO. Before we go, Quadrant 3, same thing.
So Bob, we have a question from MW that asks what a strengths-based means before we do the exercise.
So if your team has some development strengths, so there's an argument, I'll say what it implies, but it could be debatable. Some teams are good at things. So some teams are good at writing new code, that's hypothetically, let's say, and some teams are great at extending designs, and some teams are great at back end, and some teams are great at front end. They're good at everything, but they have strengths. Everyone with me? Like anyone, I as a coach have strengths. If I want to amplify my effectiveness, I want to stay in my strengths. Everyone with me? I want to stay in my strengths as opposed to operate in my weaknesses. I want to amplify my strengths instead of trying to correct my weaknesses. So the question is, Shaheen, should a product owner be aware of the persona of their team, of the personality of their team, of the strengths and weaknesses? How about what they like to do? Everyone would, now I don't want to get into a debate in chat. We could, but should a product owner consider what the team really has fun doing versus what they really don't like doing when they're feeding them backlog elements? Everyone with me? I'm a proponent that we need to be empathetic of our team and try to maximize it to the degree that we can. If we lean towards their strengths and lean towards their joy, we'll get more effective work done. But some product owners don't care. They'll shove anything. It's like, it's business. It's a priority. Shut up and implement it because I'm the PO and I told you so. So I think it's a little bit more empathetic. We have like 30 seconds left. I hope everyone was doing the quadrants. I wasn't kidding. I'm gonna tell your organizations, come on, there's some accountability here. So fill that out. And remember to identify the gaps. So don't be, right, what are you, either you or your organization, where are you spending time, right? So how much, where are you spending your time? What is your percentage, 10% increments? And then what might be some balls that you're dropping that you really should try to pick up? Just create a short list of that. Fantastic. We have one more quadrant to get into. So this is the quadrant where a lot of POs that I meet out in the wild, they land here. This is a safe place. This is a place where a lot of POs spend a lot of their time. It's the business analysis, what I call the BA quadrant. It's requirement. This is sort of the requirements or capturing the ask from the business. This is the land of personas and user stories. This is the land of acceptance criteria, acceptance tests. It's the land of done, definition of done and definition of ready, if you like those things. It's look ahead. If you know what I mean by like product backlog look ahead, architectural look ahead, refining ahead a little bit. It's the land of what is our look ahead balance? How far, not too far, but looking ahead a little bit. It's certainly the land of confirmation and signing off on stories. I always love the ceremony of a product owner, like a team printing out a story. I still to this day, I know we have them virtually and you can click done in your tool du jour, but I like the idea of printing a user story out and having a product owner like sign off on it when it's done in front of the team and having a round of applause. I just like a virtual round of applause. I just like the tangibility of that to this day. And then there's backlog refinement, that whole refinement process of clarification, slicing, dicing, prioritization. So the BA quadrant is pretty comfortable for folks. One aspect I want to talk about here is, I think, having the right mindset is allowing for emergence. So we're not writing the stories, emergent requirements, emergent understanding, not trying to write everything up front, even if you're in a regulated environment. So I wanted to amplify here, part of this BA quadrant is really balancing with the team. It's almost a dance, getting into a dance where we're refining the stories at the right level. There's a young man, I don't think I have it here. I can't believe. There's a coach, Georgia Morian, and he did a Twitter post a while back. If you search for him on Twitter, he did a curve of what is the maturity of stories. And one of the things he said is, I want stories to enter the sprint at about 20%, sprint planning at about 20% clarity. And my head almost blew up because I usually, coach for like 50% clarity, 40 to 50%. And he was going in very light. And then sprint planning was an emergent activity where we got more clarity around the stories, and then execution in the sprint. And the stories are only done at the end when they're accepted at the end of the sprint. So there was this incredibly lightweight curve where you wait till most of the refining, most of the clarity was in the dynamics of a sprint. And I was like, oh my, that's deferring it very late, and it's outside of my comfort zone. But I'm like, that's very lean. That's very, the teams aren't wasting a lot of times writing superfluous documents. They're really learning it and writing based on the implementation details. And that's sort of the essence of Emergence. Are you doing effective look ahead? I want you all to ask yourselves, do you have research spikes in your backlogs? And I'd actually ask you, what percentage of the stories, and I know this sounds like I'm trying to measure, but what I've seen is a lot of folks, out of every 100 stories, they might have a spike or two. And I actually think up to maybe 20% spikes is saying, we don't know. To me, a spike says, I don't know, let's figure it out. I don't know, let's run an experiment rather than guessing. And I think teams don't like to say, I don't know, let's run an experiment. So I still don't see a high percentage of spikes in a lot of backlogs, particularly for a new product or a project where there's a lot of technology that the team's unfamiliar with, and you would spike it to de-risk it. So I actually think the percentage of spikes is sort of a risk. It's sort of a risk indicator, if you will, depending on the type of the project. But it's not the number. I want the team to feel like spikes are okay, right? It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to take time to figure things out. It's okay to experiment with different approaches. It's okay to do paper prototypes. It's okay to do mock-ups in Emergence. And the product owner needs to make it okay. Actually, not make it okay. You need to encourage it. It's actually de-risking things. Give the team space to figure things out. So that's not traditionally thought of, I think, as a BA activity. The other thing with BAs in the BA quadrant is I want all of you to think of your role as being a storyteller, and I alluded to it. But this is at a storyteller at a team level, if everyone's with me. Remember Link Walls, that gentleman I was talking about earlier? Not only was Link doing mini-me's, but he was the consummate storyteller. And he would even tell stories of, he went into a board meeting. I remember he went into a board meeting and the board just almost killed him because the team wasn't delivering enough stuff. And he came back and he did a wonderful job of sharing sort of the pressure from above with his team with stories, not in a way to demoralize them, but in a way to motivate them that they needed to step up and be more creative and being more competitive. And if he wouldn't have shared that story, that's a story of pressure. If he wouldn't have effectively shared that, I don't think the team would have performed and responded the way they did. So it's a consummate storyteller, conversations, narrative. You want to practice. You want to practice this as much as you can. But I think it's a responsibility of good POs to be able. It's not just write stuff down. Your job is not just writing things down. In fact, I would want you to write less and tell stories more. Personas. If everyone ever heard of customer mapping and journey mapping, to me, those are activities or tactics that are storytelling tactics, that are emerging tactics, and they can be very effective. So let me go back. This is the last of the four. Same exercise, 2 minutes. And what I want you to go back across all four quadrants. So everyone with me, you should be balancing, right now you should be balancing at what? 100%. So now you're looking at each quadrant. You can scribble out and change some of the numbers. I want you to look at it more holistically. Where are you, or is the organization spending its time realistically up to 100%? So look at the balance, look at the tension across them, and then what are the gaps? I also want you to keep filling in any gaps. And what I mean by a gap is something not that I said should happen, but you said, you know what, we need to do more of this, and add that as a gap. So work on this quadrant, but balance across all of them right now, if you wouldn't mind. So take a look back. I'm going to give you 30 more seconds, a little bit more time to do it more holistically. Shaheen, could you put that link in for the free book again? Maybe for folks that are coming in to chat. So everyone, I did make a promise. Oh, there's the timer. Cool. I did make a promise for a free e-copy of my product owner book, if you want, just for you. So don't grab a copy and then send it to your family, like to your grandchildren or children. They probably won't like it anyway. So just grab an individual copy, and you can grab it. I think the time frame is the next. I made it for 2 weeks or so. So you want to grab it within the next 2 weeks, and just set. I think it's set to 0, so there's no cost. Cool. So what I said is balance your quadrants. So we've done that. I gave that to you. You want to balance them now to 100%, and just do that. Now, before I want to generate some feedback. Maybe Shaheen, I can't see everyone, but would anyone, what I'm looking for is some folks who might share an observation or a learning or an aha or something based on their quadrant view. So something, oh, you know what, I'm overloaded, or I'm underloaded, or I'm not spending time here when I should be spending it there. So any observations about balance?
So I think something that I definitely noticed was that we have multiple people taking care of multiple quadrants. So it's not just a product manager or a product owner who's kind of taking care of all of it, but then the responsibilities are definitely distributed, and then you might have like multiple people coming towards the same responsibility at like multiple flight levels essentially. But then the one thing that I also, I guess, is, I don't know, itching in my head is that although we have so many people trying to take care of these responsibilities, there is still an environment of everyone's super busy and everyone's rushed and like we have no time to stop. So I don't know, good or bad, but that's just like an observation. I feel like that definitely sets the tone for the team to a certain extent as well.
Yep. One of the things I've found is I've seen very few, probably less than 5 over the last 10 or 15 years, of product owners, human beings on the planet Earth, who can actually operate individually across all of the quadrants effectively by themselves. And that's one of the realizations. So Raj, that was one of my hopes for realization, is that there's usually organizations have an aggregate view, right? So it's multiple responsibilities, but at the end of the day, I'm actually expecting who is the PO. So if someone else is not doing it, then it falls to, so there is only one. There's one PO. And they need to be making sure that the quadrants, I think of it as care and feeding. I think the PO needs to make sure that someone is covering the quadrants, and in real time they're monitoring that. And it's not just coverage, it's doing an excellent job. So I don't want mediocre product ownership. I want rocket star product ownership. I want it to be powerful. I want it to be complete. So someone needs to own that to make sure all the bases are covered, right? And they have the proper vision. And it's not one size fits all. In some cases, in some organizations, the product management might be very lightweight, and that's fine. But that's to make sure we're adapting and we're care and feeding for the outside world effectively and for the inside, for the team. And we're balanced across the quadrants. Any other comments from anyone else?
Lucy, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'll share. Thank you, Bob, for all of this. What I found, basically what you're saying too, is it's overwhelming how much there is to do for this one person. And when teams are looking for him or her, and behind the scenes, they're running around and all we see is the Jira. But not meaning to plug a tool here, but so we just see the front end, right? But it is quite an impressive task. And I think it really gave me a moment to sit. I'm not a product owner. I mean, I've been a product owner in my roles before, but currently I'm not acting as a product owner. But really to see the one is the vulnerability. So when you're overwhelmed by the 4 quadrants, and you haven't even told us what the 5th one is, but when you're overwhelmed, are you vulnerable enough to ask for help? It's almost like that one part of leadership is really so critical to the rest of the quadrants falling in place. So that was my aha moment today. Thank you, Bob.
No, I agree with you. Thank you, Lucy. It is meant to have that revelation. So there's a coverage aspect, there's a vulnerability aspect. The other thing is, where are you? You inspired this in me, Lucy. So people gravitate to their comfort zone sometimes. So let's say I'm a BA who was declared, this is a simplistic example, but I'm a business analyst historically, and then I was declared to be a product owner. So where am I going to spend my time? I may spend time in my comfort zone, which is the BA quadrant. And that's fantastic. That's an activity, but I may be starving an even more important quadrant. Like I may not have the skills or the time or something else to actually be in a quadrant or in an activity that's a higher priority and much more needed than my comfort zone. So having those insights, like, I actually may want to find a BA on the team and not write stories so that I can spend more time in the leadership and the project management quadrants, or product owner, if that makes product management or project management, if that makes sense. And to really have that vulnerability to like go where you're most unskilled, and then ask for help. Any other reactions? I think we've covered some of the major observations that I wanted to sort of expose. Anyone else want to share? Did anyone over allocate themselves? I'm just curious. Shaheen, can you, like, over 100% just on the 4 quadrants? Any product owners? Anyone go over 100%? It's called a stretch objective. You should be stretching yourself. No? Okay. So here's the last one, and I want to rebalance it. And I kicked myself. I saved it for last, but when I was doing the quadrants, I was like, how could you Bob, you buffoon, how could you forget, like, self-care? How could you forget, like, you can be doing all the quadrants, but if you burn yourself out and you sort of leave the company just in exhaustion, then that's not the goal either. And I wasn't talking about self-care so much. I was talking about product owners leaping tall buildings across the quadrants. So I want to add something, which is investing in yourself. believe it or not. And again, the context here is the product owner, either you or is your organization investing? Like, do you look at this as a profession, a valuable profession where you need to reinvest? So are you balanced? Is there self-awareness? What are you doing for personal growth and learning? What are you doing for, yeah, I said it, personal happiness? What are you doing to help yourself? Are you doing something that's giving you joy? Are you in an environment where you're encouraged and engaged? Are you emotionally intelligent? Do you have time to build relationships? I didn't even say it in the 4 quadrants, but relationship building is incredibly important. Like relationship building with your Scrum Master, relationship building with your functional home, relationship building with functional managers, development managers, maybe crucial. Customers, stakeholders, and I didn't even build that time in. So relationship, emotional intelligence, re-energizing yourself. Everyone with me. There's a happening in this post by Len Legacy that I like to reference. There's a link behind it. You can click on it later. But Len talks about immerse with customers, time and space to be visionary and creative. We talk about teams, giving teams time. What about giving the product owners the time for that? Are they receiving meaningful feedback from their customers? Do they have a positive working relationship with their Scrum Master? Are they working on that? Are they proud of what the team is delivering? I use this metric a lot with teams. I talk to teams as a leader in organizations, and I'm like, I want you to wake up in the morning and be proud of what you did the day before. I want you to feel like you did great work. Like when you wake up in the morning and you're looking at the mirror before you start a new day, and you look back on yesterday, most of the time, 4 days out of 5, 9 days out of 10, I want you to like feel, it wasn't a perfect day, but I did good work, right? I'm proud of what we did. I'm proud of the decisions we made. That's so important. And are you keeping yourself healthy? So this is a wonderful post as a reference. I want all of you to I can't see everyone, but I want you all to promise me. So I'm going to take you on your word. I should have made this part of getting the book for free or something, but I trust you. There's a video by Steve Jobs, which is a Stanford. It's a Stanford commencement address. He did it a few years before he passed away. It's a wonderful video. I use it in a couple ways. I use it as a master class in storytelling. So I'd really like you to analyze it from that point of view. If you buy into this storytelling, you can learn a lot from the video just on storytelling. But beyond that, one of his stories, he talks about doing what you love. I'll repeat that, doing what we love, and finding the opportunity to do what we love. So part of self-care in the 5th quadrant is finding a space where you count. It's not just about delivering great products, it's about delivering great self. So I want you to really reevaluate, am I doing what I love? And can I make shifts to do what I love and enjoy? So I want you to go back, and we're not going to talk about some scaling. I want you to come back here. Everyone with me. So now I want you to go back, and I want you to look at the quadrants. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. You have 4 quadrants, and you have the 5th quadrant, self-care. And I want you to rebalance, where are you spending the time? What is the percentage? What's missing? I want you to take some missing things and increase or decrease the percentages. But I want you to rebalance all 5 quadrants. Everyone with me. And I want to make sure that you're giving time to yourself. So let's have this is your job description. Now you're either doing it for the organization as an aggregate or an average, or you're doing it for yourself if you're a PO. So take 3 minutes for that. We're almost done, by the way. really do a deep dive. I want you to really sort of come out of this with some. So my hope is if you're an individual product owner, I've shook your world up a little bit and I'm causing you to think of, I need to be shifting around a bit. Damn it, I've been unbalanced in some way. Or you're going to go back to your company and shake them up a bit and say, our product owner focus is imbalanced. We need to be shifting around this way. If you have some courage or the ability to influence in that direction. So I want you to come out with an action, a little bit of a view and some action plans, like either change action at an individual level or change actions and you at an organizational level. And you have about, let me check the time. You have about 60 seconds to finish. So someone, Donald, I don't know who that is, but from Donald to everyone, I just want to applaud. He said, self-care is the glue that holds the 4 quadrants together. Oh my goodness, my work here is done. I'll see everyone. Donald, I think you have to take over the talk because I can't compete with that. That was beautiful. Okay, we're going to move. We're going to move to the end. I'm going to I'm going to skip a few slides. They're about scaling, and I wasn't necessarily going to talk about them anyway. So here's the keys. Here's how I want to wrap up. You want to fly high, product owners, product ownership. No, I'm going to take a walk out and a crazy talk and say nobody can fulfill all aspects of the role, particularly at scale. Ask for help. Establish partnerships, trust your team. Let me say that one more time. Trust your team. Maybe I'll say it again. No. Empower yourself, engage your customers, deliver value, and grow yourself. So part of that self was grow, continuous learning, continuous challenging. If anyone here hasn't heard of sort of, new techniques, lean startup, then that's an area of investigation. And you want to be continuously challenging yourself for the team and growing your team for that matter as well. And then the real key to good is get a healthy balance across all 4 quadrants +1. And really focus on what does my organization need? What does my team need? Where are my strengths? Where are my comfort zones? Where do I need to be? Where do I need help? What can I starve? A low priority. Where do I fit? And then always consider me so that I'm not burning myself out. Everyone with me. It's me first. And I'm not just kidding about that. It's really me first. You can't serve others if you don't serve. So there's this notion of servant leadership. One of the things that are left out of that, so they serve everyone else. The fine print says, in order to serve everyone else, you need to serve yourself first sometimes. So that's just a food for thought. And that's it. I want to bid you all peace and thank you. I gave you the discount code. If you do want to pass, I gave you the free code. This is another free book here. This has links to my blog posts on product owners. So you can actually download the LeanPub version of Agile Reflections for product owners. And then this is a copy of the book that you can pass out to friends for, I don't know, it has a discount. And what else? I think I'm done. I'll leave it here. Shaheen, any wrap-up questions? I know it's late, so I don't want to take too much time.
Thank you, Bob. It was an insightful talk. No, we don't have any question in the chat, but people might have some questions that want to ask you directly.
That's fine. I'm done. So everyone, I'm sticking a fork in it. So I am done.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep. Thanks, Bob.
Any questions that you might have, please unmute yourself, or we are ending this session in 5-10 minutes.
You could ask something about this. Is so we started out just talking about Agile stuff, so we could do that again if anyone has. It doesn't have to be me asking. Shaheen knows more than I do, so you can ask all your questions to him as well. So
that I don't see Bob lying. That's a lie that he said.
No. But conversation. Anyone have an Agile conversation?
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Lucy again.
Hi, Lucy.
I mean, product ownership and all of these quadrants in and self-care. I mean, it's so important. I think that it gets lost in the remoteness of everything right now, and that kind of building of relationships, how we are maintaining trust in each other, vulnerability with each other. It's very challenging. Well, I'm on a Scrum Master side, but just to see the product owners who are trying to gather all these requirements from all their stakeholders, and the hallway conversations are gone, the coffee stops are gone, so now the alignment is out, and then people get ambushed, and you have blow-ups in meetings because I thought you said blah. So what's your advice for Scrum Masters in terms of that? Like the gears, how they used to grease the gears, and like, what is your advice for Scrum for product owners in our new remote reality right now?
I think it's focus. It's a really great question. I think I'm going to try to answer it for both, or just in general. I think you alluded to something there. It's like we have a tactical focus sometimes, right? Like the Scrum Master there's the easier focus, which is like tactical execution, or the product owner might go to, they might focus because it's easier virtually. It's not easy, but it's easier to do backlog refinement and to muck around with Jira than it is to do relationship building. But then I think it's counterintuitive, and you said it earlier, now I think those soft skills are more important. So if they were important in a general context, right? Relationship building was important pre-COVID and pre-virtual or whatever. It's now like 5 times more important, but it maybe is 10 times harder. So we have to, I know a leader who just switched from a PMO, an Agile PMO role, to a customer ops role. And she did it virtually. So she went from a 50-person PMO to a 100-person customer ops role, and everyone's virtual. And she had this, so now she's the head of this large organization, and they're moving, they're selling things. I mean, the company is moving, and she had to get to know people, right? She had to introduce herself. She had to start with building relationships. So she could have started with project plans and Jira tickets. I'm joking a little bit, right? Or she could have started, which would have been hard, but easier to get her hands around. But she went right to relationship building, getting to know people, setting up charters, setting up team agreements, getting to know her leaders, establishing vision and mission, and things like that. And I think that's the place to do. I think product owners have to not pivot to their comfort zone, but pivot to their uncomfort, even if it's uncomfortable, and work really hard. Like you said, let's say we have a lack of alignment. That's going to hurt the team. Now that's going to be really hard to get alignment virtually, but not impossible. You can do some prioritization workshops and things like that with leaders to get the, to put the onus on them to align. So looking at it as not a product owner's job to make them align. It's if they're leaders and stakeholders, they need to align. But putting up an environment, maybe a Miro board or something where and make it visual to them so they align themselves. Again, it may take hours, Lucy. I'm not naive. It may take days, weeks, hours. You may have to pray several times to get alignment, but that's the area of focus. I think the hard bits are the area of focus right now. I hope that makes sense. It's really go into the soft is the hard bits. Even like giving people grace, like communicating to people. There's this notion of assuming positive intent and giving people grace. It's like, we're communicating via email and text messages, so there's more time now to miscommunicate, or someone may, I didn't roll my eyes, but you may perceive, oh, Bob rolled his eyes, what's up with that, and he's disengaging. And so that's oh no, let's assume that maybe it's just his camera jostled or something like that. Any reactions to that from anyone else? Relationships, soft skills focus, and then being kind to one another, really like walking our talk with kindness and grace and things.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned in chat, Bob, was just building some unstructured time in. How important that is.
And finding what charges your batteries, Kenneth. Like people, everyone says, well, go exercise. Well, I'm not an exerciser. I mean, I'm a walker, but I'm not an exerciser. But I read fantasy books, and like fantasy recharges the heck out of me. So grabbing some time to recharge my batteries in the right way, like finding what recharge, and not being embarrassed by it. Like everyone finding the areas, unstructured time, think time, just time to do whatever recharges your batteries, right? And really be personalized about it. Really, like become more self-aware of what does that. And
yeah,
what doesn't
it's that,
do
and
that.
also in terms of the relationship building. So what I meant by unstructured time is building unstructured time into meetings to have those conversations with people.
Yeah.
The relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Both.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so this is Russ. So in that same regard as my group of Scrum Masters, some in India, some in the U.S., and started up about 2 or 3 months ago or so, just making sure I had a weekly meeting with them. And a lot of time, more of that was towards the initial intent was what kind of issues, what kind of problems, but more and more, we're probably spending 15 to 20 minutes talking about what happened last night or who's going where on vacation this weekend. So it becomes that more, it's that we don't have a water cooler to go to anymore.
Yeah.
But we're finding, I'm finding more and more 4 months into this that I need it. I'm realizing I needed that too yet. I said, I don't need that, but we all need it. We all need a little bit of contact.
And not feeling bad about it. I mean, in a lot of cultures, there's this sort of, forward momentum, working hard, stretch this, stretch that. It's about people, but they focus on delivery and outcomes and things. And really, like, whatever your culture is, creating it, even if it's a challenge, having the courage to create that space, Rush, and commit to it, like you're doing, right? Like, don't be apologetic. There's no, that's actually one of the most important things you can do, and to me, it will definitely contribute to the bottom line, right, of the health of the team and the delivery. So it has a direct relationship. It's not that visible to the bottom line, the productivity of the team and the morale of the team. So do that stuff, but it's hard. It's harder virtually. And there's some nice games you can play, like Insights. Oh, I wonder, there's something, what's it called? Zimbio. As a way to break the ice with your teams, there's a website called zimbio.com. And they have all kinds of little quizzes you can take. It's like a lightweight Myers-Briggs. And there's all these quizzes, like you can, one quiz is, what Dr. Seuss book character are you? And it'll evaluate that at a team level. And it's fun, it's energizing, and it creates insights, a lot of these surveys. And for those who want to know, I don't remember if Shaheen and I did this, but I'm a fish, if you know that, so you could look that up. I'm the Dr. Seuss fish character. Shaheen, do you remember what you were?
I was that elephant. I don't remember the name.
Oh, Horton.
Yeah,
Horton. You were Horton. You were Horton the Who.
And after I learned that, I like play that with teams, with like like teams that are developing software, teams of leaders, or group of fun friends just to do that. You can, it's lots of good fun insight that you can get out of it.
Oh, and I am the fish, and Shaheen is Horton, so it's relatively accurate, whatever that means. Any
One
other?
fish or two fish, Bob?
What?
One fish or two fish?
I am one fish.
Okay.
I'm one fish. I'm that curmudgeonly, you know, if people would do it my way, the world would be a happier place. So, any other questions or anything before we go?
I'd love to hear your thinking about what I was thinking about. I had previously been thinking of supervision in an agile environment being more of a Scrum Master role, but I could see how you could apply all these quadrants and even have a backlog for people development.
So use the quadrant model, and I'm just trying to understand for people that like, so this one or creating a quadrant model for people development?
I was looking at this one actually.
I don't know. I think I might take leadership. You're right. Maybe you could do that. I could see project management being there. I could see, you know, maybe it could be modified that way. It would be an interesting exercise to, you know what, I mean, someone was talking about, I think I heard the experiment word earlier. So maybe that's an experiment you could share with this group and with me. I'd be interested in seeing what that, I'm starting to see maybe it could be extended in that way. That would be an interesting experiment. And it doesn't have to be exhaustive. I mean, I didn't exhaust. Part of the quadrants is making them your own and throwing out some of my terms and adding whatever you want, right? It's just really creating like some balance across those. It's sort of 4 bit buckets to categorize some activities. So go for it.
And Bob, we have a question about recommendation for understanding Kanban. I'm not sure if it's aimed at a product owner or someone that is a product role, has a product role in a Kanban system. Rahul is asking.
So is the question, is there a product? I mean, pure Kanban doesn't have, it's sort of role-less, right? Which is I think one of its strengths, right? Like the Kanban doesn't say Scrum Master, it doesn't say Release Train Engineer, it doesn't say Product Owner. Now there is someone in Kanban. So when I've, you know, in my experience, when I've moved from Scrum organizations to Kanban, or when we've had like a sort of a merged view of that, our Kanban teams did have product owners. And it did make sense because they had backlogs and they had input queues and things like that. And so it made sense to have the role in Kanban. But, you know, the book, that's not defined that way in the descriptions of it. So, but if I'm ever spinning up a Kanban team, I want someone to feel, I don't care what you call them. You could call them product person, product Kanban person, whatever title you want to give them. But I think the quadrants apply to Kanban in real world situations, would be my opinion, if that's the question. Now you would have to change the behaviors. Like, for example, backlog refinement would be fun to me. Look ahead. Remember all of that stuff I was talking about it's a tapestry and look ahead and risk. I think a lot of those concepts would have to fundamentally shift in Kanban. So you wouldn't want to bring a Scrum mindset to a Kanban team in your view of the quadrants. But I think if you changed the tactics a bit, maybe did them less frequently or more frequently, or dropped a few, I think that would be the right mindset.
Right. Thanks, Bob. Is there any other conversation or questions with Bob?
Hi, this is Debbie. Bob, I have a couple of questions on the subject you were just talking about with Kanban. So if you don't have a product owner, then who would take on the responsibility of prioritizing the backlog and making sure that you have the, whether it's called a story, feature request, or whatever you have in there, but you have a backlog and somebody has to put that input, input the work in there and prioritize it. Who would do that if you didn't have a product owner?
So there's a notion in Kanban of in most views of Kanban of a replenishment meeting, which could be looked at, so a queue replenishment meeting, and you're looking to replenish the queue, the input queue, to the WIP limit of the input queue to the Kanban board, if you think about that. So you could have a product owner who is, and in front of that replenishment meeting, there could be a backlog. Everyone with me? There could be a list of stories to do. It's just not introduced to it's introduced to the team via the replenishment meeting. And I'm trying to talk about classic Kanban terms to the best of my ability. But there is sort of that flow. So now the question is, well, who's doing that? So it could be a product manager, it could be a product owner, it could be the team working with those roles, it could be a customer, it could be a small group of customers feeding that and making decisions. They would make prioritization of their backlog, and then they would have to, the replenishment queue, that replenishment meeting would be talking about that. I've seen all of those work. Now, in my experience, it's mostly product ownery folks that are filling that role. You can actually have a group that does that as well. I'm not big on like a group of 10, sort of, not making this priority calls, like having groupthink, but you can have a committee or a group that is responsible for just the replenishment meeting. So think of that as the tip of the iceberg. So I think a product owner in Scrum is looking ahead further than a product owner in Kanban is not looking ahead very far, if that makes sense. So much more flexibility on that.
Yeah, it does somewhat, and yeah, I agree. There is a lot more flexibility there, but there has to be an assumption that all of this work is taking place outside of the team, so that when the team comes to replenishment, somebody in the business has determined what is the next feature.
Absolutely. But that could be, like I said, that could be one person, product folks, committee. But you're absolutely right. So you don't come in with a random cloud without an order. You with me? So yes. Someone has to determine the order of things. Absolutely.
Okay. And then I have one more real quick question for you. You said something about there was a link on a particular page for the Agile Reflections. Could you share that with us again? I missed it.
Oh, sure.
And would you be sharing the slides with us? There was a question for that.
Yeah, I will. It'll be on like a PDF, but you can grab it here. It's the one on the left. Okay.
Okay. I guess this is it. Going once, going twice, and going 3 times. Thank you, Bob, so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you all for inviting me. It was a real pleasure. I hope you got something out of it. Shaheen, thank you for inviting me.
Thank
all
you.
Right.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a good night. You're welcome. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Shane, for
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Good night, everyone. Bye.